Get the career you want with the skills employers need. Make a Btec work for you.
It's my great honour to welcome you all.
Oh, this makes me feel amazing. It's just incredible.
Btec Awards motivates me to be the best.
Right now, I just can't comprehend.
Yeah, I didn't expect to win it, to be fair.
Steph, I got to ask you first, why are you such a passionate supporter of Btec and vocational education in general?
Because, you know, the skills that you get from doing a Btec and vocational training are exactly what we need for our economy.
You're the key. You are the future. I hope the pride you feel at these incredible achievements will push you onwards and sustain you as you go forward in your lives and careers.
Hello everyone, hopefully you can all see and hear me. Welcome to this session about the FE sector post-COVID, supporting individuals to access learning and make progress in their lives. This is an FE Week broadcast, webcast in partnership with Pearson. For those of you who are wondering who I am, I'm Seth McGovern. I am a television presenter and business journalist, but more importantly, I'm someone who is really passionate about the FE sector and about vocational education. I think if it wasn't for the apprenticeship that I did as a teenager at Black & Decker all those many moons ago, I don't think I'd be where I am now with my career. So I'm someone who bangs on a lot about how important the sector is. And, you know, that's why it's fantastic to be part of this event today and look at the future of, you know, what we can do to make sure that it continues to be a successful sector and grows even more in so many different ways. So this event will look ahead to the next years in the FE sector. I'm sure lots of people want to look ahead and not look backwards at the moment, don't they? We're going to be talking to educators, young and adult learners, business leaders and politicians as part of this, and we'll be discussing the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead in a post-pandemic, post-Brexit landscape. There's also an opportunity for you to ask questions as part of all this, and we really do want to encourage that. So please do use the chat function. There's a chat box and you'll be able to send them through to me, and I will make sure we try and get as many answered as possible. So let me tell you who we have on the panel. We've got Julian Keegan, MP, Skills and Apprenticeship Minister, Conservative MP for Chichester since June 2017. We've also got Toby Perkins, who is an MP as well, Shadow Skills and Apprenticeships Minister. He's a Labour MP for Chesterfield and he's been doing that since May 2010. we've got Cindy Rampasord as well, who's Senior Vice President at Pearson. They're responsible there for Pearson's UK's portfolio of technical, vocational and apprenticeship qualifications. Also with us, Yvonne Kelly, Principal and CEO of Barking and Dagenham College, which provides professional and technical training to 12,500 students annually. So a lot of people there. Stephen Evans, who's CEO of the Learning and Work Institute, which is an independent policy, research and development organisation dedicated to lifelong learning, full employment and inclusion. Also some learners with us as well, Fevan Zira, who is a Btec adult learner. She did a Btec at level 3 in electrical engineering and has won several awards as well for her work. Also Hayden Jakes, who's got an MBE, Btec alumni, our Hayden. He's currently studying aerospace engineering at Nottingham University. And also, I'm very pleased to say, he was a gold medal winner at the World Skills event in Russia. So I had the delight of interviewing him about that, and Fevan as well, who I met at the Btec Awards. So we've got a fantastic lineup for you. And as I say, you know, lots of people bringing different experiences of the sector to the chat today, and please do feel free to ask questions using the chat box too. But I'm going to, first of all, put you in the hands of Cindy, who is going to open the event for us and give us some thoughts from Pearson's perspective on this. So please welcome Cindy Rampasord.
Thank you, and thank you, Steph, and thank you to all of the panellists and FE Week for helping to organise and support this event. We planned this event before Christmas. And in December, November time. And at that time, we were looking forward to March, April, where we were really focusing on the kind of work skills initiatives and all of the work around the kick-starting of the economy. I think it's fair to say that we've had all had a bit of a shock over the last month or so, as we've kind of tried to battle through the impact of COVID on the lives of so many. But we felt that this discussion was still really relevant, and you know, really thinking about and planning ahead to that kind of post-COVID environment, and really looking at what is the impact of COVID on the lives of individuals in terms of learning. And that's about the progression for learners, but also access and that important role that FE has to play in that post-COVID environment. And there were 4 things really that we wanted to kind of flag as points that we felt were really relevant in this discussion. The first is around participation. FE as a sector has always supported participation. It supported a broad church of society to access learning and make progress in their lives. So be that social economic, be that gender, be that race, be that sexual orientation, age, the huge number of adult learners that's supported by the sector. And from my own time in FE, I know that that's up and down this country. It truly is about participation for all. And I think FE as a sector has done that by the design of their curriculum, by really being flexible and responsive, but also about having choice, and choice around different pathways, which I think will be as relevant as we come out of COVID. So things like career-focused qualifications like Btec and others, the A-level pathway, the apprenticeship pathway, but also technical qualifications like T-levels. Maintaining that access and choice, I think, is going to be crucial going forward. And on access, that's the second point I thought that it'd be worth talking about. Access increasingly has been around the discussion to do with tech and technology as an enabler. COVID, I think, has accelerated what we've seen in schools and colleges up and down the country, with online learning being taken up in terms of resources, in terms of classroom environments, proctoring, and over time, maybe assessment. But there are some challenges with technology. We all think that technology is probably here to stay in learning. And certainly we did a global learning survey in 2020, last year, of 7,000 learners. And 78% said that they felt that technology really supported greater access. But with that, about 70% also talked about digital poverty. And I think going forward, it's a real challenge for us as we come out of COVID, particularly for adult learners, where they might be looking at short bite-sized learning, and technology is a key enabler. And I guess if we don't solve the technology challenge, then that learning deficit stays with adults and young people for the remainder of their lives. So there's a big question around technology as an enabler and technology being supported through infrastructure. The third area, which is the really important, another really important area, is around employability and really restarting the economy and the progression to employment. And we know this is going to be more crucial in terms of the pipeline of talent, but also upskilling. And COVID has changed many things, as many of us know. Working from home, we're all, I think, sat in a home or a safe office. We've seen many businesses pivot, many retailers that won't exist going forward, increase online, more micro businesses coming up, logistics kicking off, health, wellness, all of those sectors growing. As we move forward, what we will need to do is make sure, jointly and working with FE, that the content, the curriculum is relevant, it's modular, it's bite-sized, so there's flexibility and access so that people can access and really make progress in their lives. And the fourth area really is all of this is going on. We've got COVID happening, and against that backdrop, we've got huge policy changes happening. We've got a level 3 review, a level 2 review. We've got the rollout of T-levels in its first year. And we know that currently 60% of young people do follow a vocational route post 16. So I guess against all of that backdrop, it's just maintaining the things that work in our system, tweak the stuff that doesn't work, and recognise that going forward the need for choice is going to be continue to be as great. And actually it's going to be about agility, flexibility of curriculum, and really creating those opportunities for progression. So I think it should be a really rich discussion. I'm really looking forward to hearing from the other panelists and also from the questions from the floor. Thanks, Steph.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Cindy. And yeah, so much there to pick through. And I know lots of questions coming in already. Just to remind you, do submit questions via the chat function, and trying to stick to topic if you can as well on this. I know there's so much to ask about at the moment, isn't there? So Cindy's thoughts there, and we will ask her some questions shortly when we open the panel session. But at this point, let me introduce Julian Keegan, who is the MP Skills and Apprenticeships Minister. And then following that, we'll hear from Toby Perkins. But first of all, Julian, welcome to the panel session. I'll let you take the floor.
Oh, thanks very much, Steph, and thanks to everyone for inviting me, and Happy New Year to you all. And certainly we're starting the new year once again facing challenges, and once again having to change everything we've done, everything we knew, everything we were planning to do. So thank you to everybody who's responded as we have to in these uncertain times. However, despite all of that, I think all of us, and Cindy and I speak regularly about this, all of us are very excited about the opportunity for further education and technical education in the next year, in the coming years. Clearly, we're going to have a lot to do to recover from the pandemic. We've got a lot, we've got to build back better, we've got an economic recovery, and we do really believe that further education, technical education, is a really important economic driver. We've got massive skills gaps in this country, and we've had them before coronavirus. Obviously, the impact of coronavirus, as Cindy said, is going to, it's accelerated some trends. It's accelerated certainly in education, who, to be honest, has been a bit of a laggard in technology. You know, technology, there's been massive tech shifts, and there's been huge changes in industry in the last, 15, 20 years, and really education was a little bit behind that curve. Well, no longer. I think we've had a lot that's happened, and we've shifted to technology very quickly. We've got more used to it. The teachers have got more used to it. The young people have got more used to it, and that we can build on that. I think there's an investment that's been made both in not only the physical devices and the content and the courses, but it's the whole learning that we've all had. We've all had to adjust very quickly. So that gives us opportunities for the future. This is the year when we will be introducing the FE white paper shortly, not too long, hopefully, to wait. And it really is going to help us transform our technical education and training. And this is probably the biggest transformation in this area for decades, probably 70 years actually. So it really is going to put employers and embed employer-led standards at the heart of our qualifications. We kind of picked the best of lots of different systems around the world, and then we've put our own version on it over that, and really looking at the opportunities that technology gives us as well. So there is a lot to do. We've also introduced a lifetime skills guarantee, so we recognise that it's not just young people. Of course, lots of adults, lots of people may be displaced or may have their career opportunities more limited by coronavirus, and we want to be there every step of the way to help people to reskill, upskill, or just change into a completely different career, into their second or third career, if the timing is there and right for them. And we'll be there to make sure that there is a lifetime skills guarantee, that you can get access to training, but also lifetime loans as well, so that you can upskill and get to some of those higher levels of skills as well. So there's a lot that we're going to do to make training more accessible, more flexible. We're introducing lots of new delivery methods, including boot camps and lots of other things. So I think it's a very exciting year, and I think the sector has got a lot to do, but I feel confident that it will step up to the challenge.
Thank you very much, Julian. Now let's hear from Toby Perkins, who's Shadow and Skills Apprenticeships Minister.
Great. Well, thanks ever so much, Steph. It's a great pleasure to be on what I think is a really important conversation. As Cindy was saying, the look towards the future is incredibly important. It's important we see what we are going to be looking at coming out of COVID. But actually, I think it's important that we recognise that one of the key things that's going to enable us to come out of the COVID crisis strongly is the actions that are taken during the COVID crisis. It's incredibly important in terms of the sector, in terms of the people employed in it, in terms of ensuring we don't have a lost generation, in terms of ensuring that the independent providers survive, that we have the right decisions taken during the COVID crisis. And so I'll touch briefly on those and then move on to the post-COVID situation. And one of the things that Labour Party proposed just in the last week or two is that right now the government's incentive schemes around apprenticeships are not generous enough. They're not making employers take that decision to go ahead with apprenticeships. And we're proposing that government use the £330 million that is left over in the Apprenticeship Levy that was sent back to the Treasury last year to part fund the wages of new apprentices taken on. We're suggesting the government should fund the first 3 months of a new apprentice wages. They should fund 50% of the next 6 months and 25% of the final 3 months for 85,000 new apprenticeships, split between the 16 to 18 and 19 to 24-year-olds. And we think that a scheme like that over 6 months, which would replace the number of apprenticeships that currently were in place prior to this pandemic, would be a really important step to encourage employers to step forward and take on apprentices. Because I think one of the real issues there is at the moment is it's unclear what is expected of employers. Are we expecting them to do Kickstart? Are we expecting apprenticeships? Are we expecting traineeships? Should they be doing T-levels in the national interest? And I think actually retaining the role of apprenticeships as the gold standard, as the real investment in our future, is a really important measure for government to take, and actually government being more generous towards the Kickstart programme than they are towards apprenticeships, I think is a retrograde step. And I think what we also need is a real sense of leadership and decision making from government. And the Minister said just a few moments ago we're going to see the biggest changes in 70 years. She wouldn't be the first person in this government to rather overclaim. We'll see whether she delivers when the white paper comes out that I know we're all looking forward to. But I think that the recent fiasco on the Btec exams showed a real lack of leadership from government. It left many colleges and college leaders exposed. It left many people uncertain about whether they were going to do exams or not. And at a time when all of the country's priority should have been on driving down the transmission rate of coronavirus, I think it was a huge lack of leadership. I welcome the lifetime skills guarantee, but I think it's limited. It was a reintroduction, something that existed under the previous Labour government, but it does prevent someone who's already done level 3 in hospitality or tourism transferring their skills, for example, into care, which is one of the things that the Prime Minister suggested in his Exeter College speech was the whole purpose of this. But actually, if you already have a level 3 qualification, you're unable to transfer. And it's also limited in terms of the areas you're able to study. So I think that is a retrograde step. I think the other thing we really need to see coming out of the government's white paper is a recognition of the need for higher education, further education, sixth form, employers, and their local government and local civic leadership to be seen as part of a collaborative approach, working closely together, rather than a competitive situation where HE and FE are fighting against each other, where there has to be either a decision between colleges deciding what is studied or employers. I think clearly there has to be a role for employers, but I think the Apprenticeship Levy and the amount of the Apprenticeship Levy that's being spent on older learners rather than on younger learners shows the limitations of an employer-led approach. So there's a huge amount more that I look forward to getting into in the questions and answer section. And thanks again for putting on this really important session.
Thank you very much, Toby. I want to ask you a couple of questions, both of you now, if that's all right, before we move on to our other panelists. I mean, Julian, there's several questions actually coming in, and I'd keen to know this more about this myself, is around the white paper, which you've talked about. Obviously, it's been delayed. So can you give us any more information about what we can expect from it? Can we get an update on it?
Yeah, and unfortunately it has been delayed, not because it's not ready. There's been a lot of work done across government to make sure that it's ready. But of course, we're dealing with trying to manage the unmanageable, which is coronavirus and new variants, etc. So we've had to obviously focus on some aspects of that, and therefore the white paper is a little delayed, but it isn't going to be too long. I mean, effectively what it does is it tries to make sure, you know, I've worked for 30 years before coming to this job as an MP, and I've worked in many different industries all over the world, high tech. I've never had a job where I haven't been pulling my hair out in many countries about the lack of the skills that you need for a modern workplace. And, you know, when you think about the impact that technology has had on almost every business, on how we do everything. I mean, even over the pandemic, it's now even changed how we take, you know, medical appointments, and all kinds of things have changed with how technology has transformed businesses. But it's been doing that for quite a long time in many different sectors, and therefore we need to make sure that what comes out of all of that time in school, all of that time in further education, every kid stays in full-time education now till they're 18. Many more than half now go on to university as well, and at the end of all that, to make sure that when they come out, that they have the right skills that are going to make sure they have a fabulous career and they fill these skills gaps. This is what needs to be done, and so the white paper focuses on that. Employers are key to that. Employers are key to embedding those standards, because it's no good, you know, trying in isolation to figure out what it is that, you know, or any organisation, whether it's the NHS or whether it's a company. So it's really going to be looking at all the reforms that we need to make sure that system is really organic and works very well. There's also a lot of investment that we've announced in, you know, there's a national skills fund. We've also announced, I mean, Toby mentioned HE and FE working together. We've got institutes of technology that are being rolled out. We've introduced a new technical qualification, T-levels, which are designed with employers as well. So, you know, it's building on a lot of the things that we've started, but really putting FE in a much more solid position to do something which effectively means we are more focused on solving the problem than potentially competing over a student. And I think that's something that's at the heart of it. But, you know, it's clear to me, it is clear to me that we have too big a gap between what comes out of the school gates or FE colleges and what organisations and employers need. And obviously with Brexit as well, we just done that towards the end of the year and finalised our arrangements with the EU. But that will also change, and I think employers know that they we have been on a bit of a low skills road, and we have been able to use other means to get talent, and that's got to stop. We've got to start investing in providing those opportunities and that right training for people in this country. And we don't know what we're going to uncover once we get to the other side of the pandemic, but we know it's going to have a big impact on employment, and there's going to be an increase in employment, and this skills reform needs to deliver to make sure that people have those opportunities and they're meaningful.
One of the things the pandemic definitely has uncovered, though, is about how many young people and older people don't have the access to technology. They don't have the income to be able to afford to actually have the technology that will enable them to learn in the way that everyone is trying to learn at the moment. So what are you going to do about that? Is there going to be any help?
Yeah, and there has been. So what we did from the very beginning, so first of all, a lot of FE colleges, and I suppose many are on the call, they had like exam computers and things like this. They had computers within the FE colleges, which they have loaned out to those students that need them. We then also, the discretionary bursary fund, we expanded that so that could be used also to buy devices and data as well, the dongles. And actually for schools, which is where we had an initiative, Get Help with Tech, that was where you could, these million PCs and laptops and tablets that have been procured, or most of them have, some of them have been delivered, some of them are still being delivered. We've now announced that FE colleges can be part of that as well. We did have a simple kind of business case if they needed more money for the bursary fund, because they'd utilised all of their monies, etc. But now we'll put them as part of this scheme, and I think that's from the end of January for delivery, and that includes data dongles as well. Of course, there's been a lot that's happened. There's been announcements from EE and Free about data and free data that's being provided. Yes, it is a challenge. Yes, it is something that we have to overcome. But what you have to, we've got, one of the largest orders of PCs and laptops and tablets in our history. And you've got to remember that everybody around the world is competing for the same thing. Most students around the world are learning online, or at least a blend of learning online. So, this has been something that we've been trying to put in place as soon as we possibly can, and that will carry on. That will carry on until people have devices. And of course, we've gone from probably no connectivity to making sure that it's good connectivity as well, that it actually works, that you're not sharing with people, it's not on a phone, and now we're trying to make sure that people do have that access. So yeah, we've got many, but the Get Help to Tech, I think, is the big news that the sector will welcome.
Well, will independent trainers, training providers, get access to the IT scheme as well?
Well, it's really for 16 to 19, and I think it's to FE colleges who've only just been added to that. So at this point, I don't think that will be extended to independent training providers. Obviously, that can be looked at and kept under review. But to be honest, the independent training providers, obviously many of the people in FE colleges are doing full-time courses, and a lot of the people that are in independent training providers, quite often are doing apprenticeships, quite often they'll be employed, and quite often their employer would be responsible for making sure that they've got the right equipment, etc., to be able to work from home or to be able to study from home. But if there are any specific instances where that's not the case, then we always keep things under review. But I haven't heard specifically about that issue within the sector. So yeah, at the moment, the extension that's just been announced is for FE colleges for 16 to 19-year-olds.
Yeah, and just one more question to you, Julian. Just this one has come from Tony online saying, will anomalies in the tax system be addressed to support the vision of the FE white paper? In particular, they go on to say, especially that retraining into a new career is not eligible for tax relief, whereas professional development in an existing career is given tax relief. So could that be something to incentivise people there, that they're changing the tax relief? What do you make of that, Julian?
Well, I can't go into what's in the white paper, but also this has been something that's been discussed a while, and it's actually one of the first questions. I think it's something that's often brought up by Rob Halfon as well, the chair of the Education Select Committee. But when we've actually looked into it, it doesn't actually, it wasn't seen as a very effective measure. But the reality is that it's the Chancellor that makes the decisions about tax policy, not the not the Minister for Apprenticeships and Skills. And just something in terms of what responding to what Toby said before, in terms of just so it's clear how the scheme works. The scheme, basically, we are fully funding youth opportunity in terms of the Kickstart scheme, and that's paying for wages for 6 months. And what we're working to do, obviously, we have an apprenticeship incentive instead, and we have a lot of interest in that. And we still have many more coming forward, and many thousands have signed up for that. But what we're also doing is making sure that the Kickstart opportunities can followed up with an apprenticeship, just to make it clear that some employers, if they are finding it difficult to make a decision, and there is a lot of uncertainty, so we do understand that, then the Kickstart makes it a simpler decision for 6 months, and then you can build on that by turning that into an apprenticeship, so that young people have more training as they as they go forward. So that's very important, and that's for young people in particular.
Yeah, and just picking up on the question I asked you earlier, there's somebody, Sue, has sent a supplementary on it just around the IT scheme and independent training providers. And Sue says, if they deliver over 70% of all apprenticeships, should they not get tech support? You could use the unspent levy to fund it. Have you got any thoughts, Julian, on that?
You just cut out there, Steph. You just cut out there, Steph. I don't know if it's my PC or...
Oh, it's just Sue is asking a supplementary question just around the independent training providers, saying that they provide 70% of all apprenticeships, so shouldn't they get tech support as well? And couldn't you use the unspent money from the levy fund?
First of all, apprentices are employees, so their employers are responsible for their technology. I mean, I was an apprentice myself. If I was an apprentice in today's world, I'm sure that I would be expecting to get that tech support from my employer. And that's the case. These are employed. But in terms of it seems to me that that's where you would get your technology from. It isn't the government's and the state's job, obviously, to give everybody across the country a PC. I mean, that just isn't, because of it's obviously taxpayers that pay for that. So we're doing that where we need to for young people in school and for full-time learners. But there are other people who also provide PCs, and employers often do that as well. So in terms of, there was a second question there you had. Was it?
Sorry, Julian, have you cut out?
Did you have another question, Steph?
Oh no, that was the question. Yeah, that was it. Yeah,
it's about the levy money. So just so we're clear on the levy is raised and obviously is spent on a rolling, pulled down on a rolling basis, and has to be spent within 2 years. That levy that is unspent goes back to the Treasury. Not to it's not sat there waiting for us to do things through. And what it's there is deliberately there and deliberately designed to be focused and spent on the apprenticeship scheme.
Can I, the one thing that I totally get, it's really hard to try and allocate all the money, and the government wish they had more, but you must talk to the Treasury. It kind of does my head in when politicians say, oh, that's up to the Chancellor to decide, but you still talk to Rishi, don't you? You still have conversations with the Treasury and put forward cases for things.
more than that, we have negotiations all the time, which is why we've ended up with £2.5 billion for the apprenticeship scheme, £2.5 billion for the National Skills Fund, you know, investment in T-levels, which is 500 million a year. I mean, there is a huge investment in this area. And yeah, we speak to them all the time, you know, £95 million for the level 3 entitlement, that's new this year, 1.34 billion in adult education, 43 million now on boot camps just for this year. So yeah, every single one of them has been a negotiation, and every single one of them has been a prioritization. And you know, there isn't endless money. I mean, clearly we've spent as a government hundreds and hundreds of billions as a result of supporting our economy, our learners, our those in affected sectors, our NHS, now the vaccine programme. I mean, everything. There's been huge amounts of money spent. So, you know, but of course, there's always things that will be on top of that as well. But I think, you know, we've done a pretty good job of also investing in the future, actually, which is why schemes like Kickstart and the incentives for apprentices have also been an investment in our future.
Thank you very much, Julian. Toby, one of the things that I have felt throughout my, you know, when I did an apprenticeship, and I don't know whether Julian felt this when she did hers, was that they were never necessarily taken very seriously by politicians because so few politicians had done them, and that's why it's great. I know that we do have some now, but do you think, whether, you know, party politics aside, are there now enough politicians who actually value vocational training? Because, you know, let's not forget, it was Labour who said back when I was a teenager they wanted to get 50% of young people into uni, and that kind of suddenly stuck two fingers up at people like me doing an apprenticeship. So, you know, do you think now politicians get it? Because it certainly felt like for a long time there haven't been enough who have.
Well, I mean, certainly, I think that from the perspective of the front benches, we're all saying the right things on apprenticeships. I think there's a lot of support in theory for apprenticeships. I think that many employers recognise the value of them, and I think that's been the case over the last 15 to 20 years. I think what's important is does the policy back up the warm words and the sort of the desire in that direction. And I think that there have been some things that have been done that have been with the best of intentions, but maybe haven't actually delivered in the policy terms. I think Apprenticeship Levy is an example of that. I don't think that the answer is to get rid of the Apprenticeship Levy, but I think the way that the Apprenticeship Levy has done, with all of the responsibility for what that money is then spent, and with it coinciding with government withdrawing a huge amount of their own contribution towards apprenticeship funding, is that a lot of that apprenticeship funding is now being spent on managerial training at level 5 and level 6, and the number of apprenticeships have gone down. So you've got this big government policy, the Apprenticeship Levy, which has actually led to a reduction in the number of young people doing apprenticeships. So I think that my answer to your question is lots of people in politics want to see more apprenticeships, but I'm not sure that the policy direction's actually driven it in the right direction so far.
Well, let's bring in some of our other panellists now then. Let's bring in Yvonne Kelly, who's Principal and CEO of Barking and Dagenham College. Yvonne, are you there? Do you want to tell us what your thoughts are then, given what you've heard so far?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, the situation with the colleges, obviously, we're in the borough of Barking and Dagenham, and we're managing the COVID, as you're aware, in the national news. It's quite difficult here at the moment. And we're working very closely with the borough and the schools to put those measures in place. So, you know, a number of priority is to ensure that, you know, that is addressed. At the same time, you know, we're working incredibly hard because we've learned lessons from the previous lockdown and transitioning to that. And so, again, our priority is to ensure that that learning takes place. And one of the key things that you're raising is about access to equipment and also Wi-Fi. You know, this is a borough that's significant deprivation, you know, low-income families, you know, where money is very difficult. It is very, very difficult. And so there is an issue about immediacy. There is an issue about the speed of response that's needed to ensure that the resources get where they need very quickly to ensure that we don't get that lost learning. So, you know, we're in the situation of catching up, those who are catching up. You know, that's the situation that we are in the moment, and trying to ensure that whilst we're working remotely, we're putting all those support measures and continue to support those measures in place. And then secondly, in terms of, you know, they welcome the changes that are being made in terms of the policies. There are some real positive developments in there. That is through the level 3 entitlement, which comes in, the traineeships, the boot camps. They're very specific in their sector and recognise that the fact that that plays a key part to the economic regeneration. But this is, as I said, to reinforce what Cindy said, this is about choice. This is about flexibility. This is about options. Because you've got a situation where young people don't necessarily fit neatly into those in terms of what they want: a vocational option route, they want breadth, they want to have a wide learning experience to keep their options open so that when they progress to university, they're able to capitalise on that area of specialism there. At the moment, the T-level developments that we've got is very much a specialist area. It is a huge investment in terms of hours. It's a wonderful program in terms of what it can do in terms of placement, but it is a huge investment that doesn't naturally fit across a national landscape. It doesn't cover a national landscape at this moment in time. So there are going to be areas, you know, across the country that are not going to be able to necessarily to meet those skills gaps within those areas as well.
Yeah, Yvonne, thank you very much. I'm going to bring Hayden in now as well, and Fevin, but I should say, Toby and Julian, if you need to go, feel free to disappear, because I know you've got busy diaries at the moment. It's not like we're in the middle of a pandemic or anything. Thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you ever so much, Cheers.
Your contribution. Hayden and Fevin, let me start with you, Hayden. I know, thank you very much, thanks. You know, you're obviously in the middle of your degree at the moment. I know you're doing remote learning like so many people are at the moment. So, but Hayden, just give us a flavour of why you decided to do a Btec and kind of what the reaction's been like to you doing it, and, you know, what the experience has been like.
I originally decided to do a Btec when I knew that the career path that I wanted to take, I knew that I wanted to go into an apprenticeship in aircraft maintenance. And that's how I really knew that the Btec was going to be the best route for me as opposed to A-levels. And I started by doing a Btec level 3 in engineering at Cambridge Regional College, and for a year. And that gave me a really good foundation of knowledge and engineering industry exposure that meant that when I got to my apprenticeship, I had a good amount of engineering knowledge as opposed to just the typical maths and physics. That meant that I had a bit of a benefit, a bit of a head start when I got to my apprenticeship.
Yeah, and it's good that you thought it was a head start. What was the reaction like to you doing it?
I've had mixed reactions since I've started university now, since I finished my apprenticeship, and there are still a lot of people here that don't know about Btecs, and I found that, again, because I'm doing an aerospace engineering course, I actually have a lot of specific physics and maths knowledge where it's tailored to engineering from my Btec than most of the other people on my course, where they've just done the generic maths, the generic physics at A-level. So again, that knowing what I wanted to do earlier and then channeling that into a Btec has given me a lot of specific knowledge that I can now carry forward into my degree and into my career.
Yeah, so it probably means that you're ahead of quite a few of your peers on your degree who've actually just done the pure maths and physics A-level route.
Yeah, so I did a Btec level 3 in engineering and then another one in aeronautical engineering with my apprenticeship. And I think a lot of people don't realise how much work is actually involved in a level 3 Btec. So I mean, I'm still using knowledge that I learned in both of those Btec level 3s that are supposed to be level 3 qualifications before university, I'm still using that knowledge that I learned back then when I was 16 through to 17 in my degree now. And so having that exposure to it has definitely benefited me in my university degree as well.
Yeah, and Mcgovern, tell us about you then, and why you decided to take the route you have and what it's been like.
All right. So somebody actually mentioned it to me as I was quite new to the country, because I wanted to do aerospace engineering like Hayden did. I was looking for ways to get into it, and because of my situation, I wanted to do learning and actual get some skills on the way. And when I did a lot of research of all the options I saw, Btec was the best option to do for me, and it has proven to be right for me, to be honest.
Yeah, so you feel like you made the right decision to do what you've done?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and again, what's your feeling in terms of like access to it? Did you feel like it was, easy to do the Btec? Was it, did you feel like someone, as you say, new to the country, did you feel like it was inclusive?
Yes, definitely. The tutors were very helpful, and the design of the course as well, it was very, how to explain it? It was easy for me to understand, and I did a level 2 and a level 3, so I kind of worked my way through it, and it gave me every knowledge and skill I needed by the end of it. I want to stress this as well. It gave me the very basic knowledge I needed to get into the engineering sector. By the end of it, when I was looking for a job, I didn't even think I would be having this variety of options of sectors. Actually, it wasn't just one engineering sector. I could get into construction, Formula One, like automobiles, different many type of engineering companies. They were willing to take me on. So that Btec course was actually very helpful in getting me ready, confident, skillful to get into this many type of engineering sectors. So it was the best thing to do.
I'm sure you are not short of job offers, Mcgovern, given how brilliant you are. Stephen Evans, let me bring you in, because I mean, how important do you think it is that there is a wide choice of qualifications out there? I mean, Hayden and Mcgovern clearly sell Btecs and have done fantastically from it, but how important is it we have a wide choice?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, well done to Hayden and Mcgovern, and thank you for sharing those stories, because that's what it's all about, really. And I think, as you say, Steph, that they're great examples. I think you were mentioning earlier, I think, that push on higher education participation made you, or sort of contrasted against your experience as an apprentice. Actually, I'd say we need more people to go into higher education, but it needs to be through growth in degree apprenticeships and higher technical qualifications.
Yeah.
And we need more people doing level 3, but it needs to be vocational and it needs to be technical. And because we're looking for so many of our young people and adults as well to improve their skills and to retrain and update those skills, we need loads of different options, because life's complicated. We're going to be working for maybe 50 years or so. Things like pandemics are going to come along and change lots of things. So we're all going to have to learn all the time. Life's complicated and you need loads of different options. So as policymakers often look for a very neat solution that looks good in a policy document like a white paper, for example. But life isn't like that, and life's messy. And so I think we need to accept a bit of messiness and choice of people.
Yeah, I think you're right, Stephen, and I agree with you. I think the reason why I felt, I guess, disgruntled as an apprentice was the view that it was the pure academic sense of it. But you're right, degree apprenticeships are a really good marrying of the two, aren't they? And people do learn differently, don't they? That's the key to all of this. Everyone learns in different ways, and that is fine. Stephen, I've got to ask you as well. I wanted to ask you just about what regional differences you're seeing in terms of educational needs and experiences.
Yeah, it's a really big set of differences across the country, really. So you get growth in different sectors and job opportunities in different areas. And one of the issues, I think, with the lifetime skills guarantee that Julian was talking about earlier, it's a great thing, but actually it's the Department for Education centrally who's deciding what qualifications are eligible, which gives less opportunity to tailor it to what's growing in Manchester or in Newcastle or in Exeter or wherever it happens to be. So we need to match the skills we're providing with the job opportunities locally. I think the other thing, we've been looking at the number of adults taking part in learning for more than 20 years. And we did a survey earlier this year, saw a real interest in lockdown learning. Loads of people going online, learning how to use things like Zoom, although not necessarily always to take ourselves off mute and things like that. A real interest in learning, but actually a real digital divide that we were talking about earlier, a divide between areas of the country. So you're more likely to take part in learning in some parts of the country than others. So if the government wants to level up, if we want everyone to have a fair chance, we need to get into that. I'm always struck by something I think Justine Greening, the former Education Secretary, said, which is that talent is evenly distributed across the country, but opportunity isn't. And we need to distribute that opportunity much more evenly and give everyone a fair chance.
Yeah, just picking up on that, Yvonne, can I ask you, just in terms of the demand you've seen for the courses and things you offer, has it changed? Are you seeing more people wanting to retrain and reskill?
Yeah, I mean, we're working really closely with the DWP and the Job Centre Pluses as well. Obviously, we're rolling out the sector work-based academies. We're developing employability programs, and we're also working very closely to realise that the GLA has introduced different flexibilities and new flexibilities, and they include at level 4 and 5. So we're working quite closely, not only with the business forum within the borough to meet the needs of those employers' work, but also some key initiatives at level 4 and for those that are either furloughed or currently unemployed that wish to get back into the job market. So one of the examples, is a new sector work-based academy in civil service using the Btec Explorers. A 2-week program to get mainly they are graduates back into work. So yeah, there's a range of strategies being used and maximising not only the opportunities that the government's announced, but also the GLA's approach to the use of the AD as well.
Yeah, Cindy, let me bring you back in. Is there any points you want to pick up on, given what we've been hearing since you spoke?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the key thing has been really what Hayden and Fevan have said, which is what the existing qualifications have brought to them. And everybody talked about the changing environment, and that's why Julian's talking about all of the changes to support us to respond to change. But in many ways, qualifications like Btec have technical knowledge, they have application, and they have skills that are very, very transferable. So I was thinking, as you were all talking, I was thinking, if you think about how retail has really shifted from the high street to online, actually many of the skills that you will have learned would be relevant, but you might do a top up. So you might do something around data or data analytics or choice and preferences. And the same with health. So a lot of the skills are transferable, but you might do a top up or a modular course to make you able to work as a health specialist using technology more ably. So I think for me, there's something here about really what are we trying to get with the learning around transferability of skills, so that we are relevant for the future, and that we can respond to the changes externally, and people like Hayden and Fevan can be set up for really successful careers and have choices in their careers as well.
Yeah, Hayden and Fevan, Hayden, I'll ask you first. What do you think needs to be done to make vocational training more attractive to people as a choice, as an educational option?
I think we just need to sort of have more outreach into schools and colleges and have more awareness really of what the qualification actually is. It's not an easy way out, which seems to be what a lot of people think. And I've come to university, and having spoken with people here that are students studying the same thing as I am, they didn't realise the level of qualification, the level of knowledge that you had to get this qualification. And they saw a lot of people go and do Btecs and apprenticeships thinking, oh, it was the easy way out, when in fact, those people that went and did those Btecs and apprenticeships are now working in really highly skilled, highly paid jobs, while students are off the line with tens of thousands of pounds of debt and no real industry experience, are actually working for people that went to do BTECs and apprenticeships. So I think it's raising awareness, really, that outreach into schools, into colleges, of what a BTEC and apprenticeship actually is, and raising awareness about it.
Yeah, that is so true, Hayden, because in my time at the BBC, I was forever having to explain about the qualifications because so few people had done them. And even now it drives me mad when I see a headline and they think BTEC is not, they think that is the technology, don't they? They don't realise that it's actually an acronym. And I've so many times wanted to rant, but that's the problem, is there are lots of people out there who don't necessarily understand what they are. Fevin, what are your thoughts on engagement around getting more people doing them, or people understanding what they are even if they haven't chosen them?
It's the same. It's just creating awareness. As I'm not anymore, but as I was a STEM ambassador, we used to go to schools and go to events, and they don't really know. Nobody knows. Parents have the olden idea of BTEC only companies using the kids for less wage, but things have changed, and it's just now kids are more into social media. So I think using social media and creating awareness and showing actually if you do apprenticeship, if you do a BTEC course, what kind of levels of knowledge and skill you can get, and what kind of career paths you can take, and up to what level you can go. If you clearly show them, maybe using experience like ours, if they see it, I think they would believe it and they'll be more inclined to go for such options, because it's just such a shame not many people know about it, really.
Yeah, I know, it's I keep trying to pitch to television stations to do a reality series about people doing vocational training, like maybe about world skills and things. And I don't know if you would have fancied that. The Only Way is World Skills, Hayden. Would you have been?
Yeah, definitely. I was talking with my girlfriend about this the other day. I was going to pitch the idea to you, so
yeah, I know. I've tried. The problem I have is that I come up against, again, people who don't know what you guys do. So I'm like, it's amazing what they do. It would be incredible to shot on telly, and they're like, is it just bricklayers, or and that's the thing that you're constantly battling through. But I think it is getting better. Stephen, I wanted to ask you just around, we have talked about reskilling, retraining, but what support do you think there should be out there for people who want to retrain?
Well, to add to your pitch for a new reality show, I think one focusing on adult learners retraining would be a handy one as well. Every year we do Festival of Learning Awards, which try and celebrate the very best in adult learning, whether it's for health and well-being. We've had 86-year-old poets, and we've had market traders retraining as paramedics, and all kinds of stuff. So I think there's some really great stories there. We need to do more to get those out, as well as the stories that you were talking about there as well. So I think that's one thing. And I think a second thing, Toby was talking about this earlier, in that the lifetime skills guarantee doesn't help you if you need to do a different level 3 because you're changing career. The apprenticeship levy doesn't help you. There's not a lot of career switching apprentices. The government's new restart programme for people who are long-term unemployed, I'm sad enough to have read the ITT. There's very little mention of apprenticeships in there as well. So I think actually recognising that we're going to have 50-year careers, and you never, even with the best education in the world, you're not going to know everything you need to know by age 18 that will last you for the next 50 odd years. So I think just recognising that, and then giving people entitlements, telling those stories of adult learners and retrainers, and giving people greater opportunities. I think we can do that in a range of ways, but recognising the fundamental point is the first step along the road, I think.
Yeah, it keeps coming back to this idea, doesn't it, of lifelong learning, because there are lots of people who think, right, that's 18, I'm done with education now. And you're right, given the fact we do change careers and jobs change so much. Cindy, do you think that, what more needs to be done to get that message across about, particularly FE colleges? They're the real heart of a community, aren't they, in terms of being able to help people throughout their life, not just at the beginning?
Well, I mean, I think the really important thing as well is the voice of employers in this, and actually the fact that they'll be looking for the workforce of the future and talent, and actually they're looking at upskilling their workforce. But I think it goes back to the point that you made, Steph, and also that Hayden made, which is some of this is we need to kind of get out there more with the kind of case studies and the kind of examples of what vocational and lifelong learning means for individuals, but also, you know, get bitten back working, I think is the phrase, isn't it, that the tourist was using. But I think it's also about breaking down and challenging the snobbery. And you know, one of the things at the beginning I talked about participation and widening participation that FE does so well. And I think we need to be quite careful that we're not saying it's a particular cross-section of society that does these quals, and so we value what they give to society less. And I think in my time in education, that's certainly what I think this is associated with. Some of this is about snobbery, and it's not about understanding. And I always give the example of working in industry like Julian did for 20 odd years. And many of the people that I would have worked with would have gone to a college, they would have done a vocational qualification, and they are making a huge contribution to their lives and society at large. So I think we need to look at what we've got and look at how we tweak it, but also really, I think, acknowledge the value.
And before we wrap things up, I always like to end on a positive note. So Yvonne, do you want to just give us a flavour of what you think the opportunities are looking ahead now? Because it is a time, isn't it, when people are reassessing their life and working out actually what do they want to do with it. We've all had that time to reflect now, haven't we? And do you think this is the moment for FE and for colleges like yours to really capitalise on that?
Yeah, because the FE sector is really about opportunities for everyone. About whether it's your first, second, third chance, it is just about seizing all those opportunities. And what we're so good at is working within the landscape that we're provided and seizing all the opportunities. And I think it's to remember that we work within the community, with the community, and much broader than that, with employers, with key organisations and stakeholders, to ensure that we maximise all the opportunities to benefit learners. To get them to their destinations, to improve their life chances. And we will continue to do that. We will continue to do that. But what we would like is if the government engaged with us. We know our sector, and we can help steer that. And I think there are some myth busters that need to take place. And I think there needs to be more understanding about what we do within the local community. And I do hope the FE paper recognises that, celebrates it, and works with us, collaborates with us, partners with us to put the country back to where it is.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a brilliant note to end it on. So thank you so much to everyone who's been watching at home. Thank you for the messages you sent through as well. Cindy, Yvonne, Hayden, Fevan and Stephen, thank you very much for your time too. It's been lovely to talk to you and see other faces as well. I'm currently isolating, so I'm in a wardrobe as we speak because I can't leave the room at the moment. So it's been lovely to talk to other humans, but I know that's the case for so many of us now as well. So I always kind of end with this now. Stay safe and thank you very much. I know that the FE sector does have a brilliant future ahead with people like you behind it. So let's keep fighting the cause and let's Hayden and try and get that reality series off the ground at some point. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Action.
Get the career you want with the skills employers need. Make a Btec work for you.